So being called to Bolivia, Santa Cruz, obviously we had to get our passports and get our visas in order to travel to South America. So we reported to the Provo MTC, where we spent 3 weeks, and then luckily our group got our visas in time and were able to fly to Lima, Peru, where we would spend another 6 weeks in the Lima MTC, or CCM. The um, the MTC there is very small. There's only about 250 missionaries, and our group arrived. I remember so clearly as we arrived, in Lima, going over. It's like flying into Los Angeles at night, just lights as far as the eye can see. But when you're on the ground and you are driving through the towns, you can tell that you're no longer in America, and it is an eye-opening, awesome experience. They threw us all on a bus that was, private chartered straight to the MTC, or the CCM, and I remember sitting in the front row by the driver and just us flying, probably 50 miles per hour at 2 in the morning down these narrow, windy roads, and, missing people as they would walk past the street, not even flinching and just missing them by an inch, or, the wild dogs that were running around, and, just the conditions of the city in Lima, very heavily populated, was and very awesome and eye-opening experience. Was a good icebreaker into realizing we're here, we're in South America, and we're ready to start our awesome journey. The CCM in Lima is amazing. As much as the MTC in Provo helps you learn the language, there's no better way than, learning a language than being completely immersed, being thrown into, a facility where the teachers, the workers, the leaders, and all of your companions are native Spanish speakers. My companion, Elder Cano, who I'm still in contact today, love him dearly. He knew some English, and it was helpful. But he was patient and loving, and taught me how to teach and how to pray and how to do so many things outside of the class. The CCM is awesome because outside of learning the language and learning Preach My Gospel in the classes, you're living 24/7 with your first companion who's a native speaker. Take every opportunity you can. Just enjoy it. Enjoy the new cultural experience, the new food. I think everyone will agree, coming from another culture, another country even, it'll take some adjusting with the food. I grew up in Hawaii, where I was used to eating rice, every meal growing up. But still the different flavors and spices that came with it, your bowels will need some adjusting, but that'll be normal throughout your mission, so you'll be just fine. Enjoy it, and the CCM in Lima, Peru is beautiful. It's like this little Garden of Eden paradise in the middle of the populated, crowded city of Lima. It's beautiful. When you open up the doors from the city, you'll just see, green grass and gardens and flowers. You can tell that the Lord has prepared a place for His servants to go forth and serve. I served back in 2011, January of 2011, when we were in the MTC, and so things might be much different, but enjoying the classes and the roommates that you'll have. You were bunked with about 6 or 8 people in a room, 3 North Americans and 3 native Spanish speakers, whether they're from Guatemala, from Nicaragua, from Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Ecuador were our CCM companions in our room. And it was a blast. They want to learn English just as much as you want to learn Spanish. Don't be afraid to just do everything you can to try. If you keep your mouth closed and you're afraid and you're shy, then it'll be a lot more difficult to learn the language. The biggest advice I can give is, as soon as you get off the boat, or the boat I say, but the plane, and you're in there, just don't be afraid to sound like a fool. Try Spanish as hard as you can. Don't ever say an English prayer. From the moment that first day in the MTC you learn how to say it in Spanish, say a Spanish prayer, even if it's 5 words. It'll be a blessing, and the Lord will fill your heart and fill your mind. I have a testimony that the language will come as you make an effort to learn it. If you read the Book of Mormon every single day in your native language, out loud, it will come. In the CCM, there's so much support, and that's really the most awesome experience. One of my favorite experiences in the CCM in Lima, the MTC there, is when they sent us on our first Sábado, our first Saturday in the mission. We had all our classes during the week. They would have us practice teaching in front of other people and all that. And they said, on Saturday, we're going out. And they did. They shipped us all on a bus and took us to the center of the street, where we met actually with the Lima, I think it was the Lima Central mission. I'm not too sure. But we met with a zone there. And basically, they took a bunch of companionships and split us up and told us where we're going. And we went out, me and my companion, Elder Cano, we went to a park. It must have been like the city capital or something out there. It was a really nice area. But we went out to a park and we started doing contacts. And I remember, going up to these people, and Elder Cano would start to talk, in Spanish, being his native language, and start talking about the Book of Mormon, and he would look at me and I would look at him. It was a nerve-wracking experience, but man, what a blessing it was to have a companion who was there to love me and support me. And he would tell me, Elder, in English, Elder, you need to speak more. And I would say, Elder, I'm trying. But that's such an awesome experience, and that's the best way to do it. Face things head on. When there's a challenge, the Lord is with you, and that's the awesome blessing about being a missionary, is you have no reason to fear. Obviously, you're going to be nervous, you're going to be anxious, and you're going to be worried about how well you're going to do, but don't. Matter of fact, one of the best ways to start a conversation on the street with somebody is to walk up and ask them how you say something, or how to get to a place, or you heard this word, what does this word mean? And when they start helping you with the language, all of a sudden you can break down that barrier of, oh, who's this missionary that's coming up to me? So take every opportunity, be creative in the ways that you go up and talk to people. When you're learning Spanish, make that a talking point, how long you've been there. And that's so awesome that they can help you, and they can feel valuable to you, and then they can feel that value as you speak to them about how important they are as a child of God, and how He has a message and an important blessing for their families and things like that. So that would be my advice. First day in the MTC and in the CCM. Another funny experience I have in the MTC in Provo, my mother and my older brother, who had served his mission, dropped me off. We came all the way from Hawaii, and we went, and they dropped me off. And there's a little parking lot right across the street from the MTC where you can say your goodbyes, but as soon as you go through those gates, they say you got 2 minutes. This is just a drop-off area. So they pulled up to the doors, and there was people helping with bags, and I grabbed my bags and went in, and they drove off. And about 30 minutes later, when I got to my room, I realized, well, I forgot my backpack. My backpack had my scriptures, it had all my papers and pens, my Preach My Gospel. All of that was left in my mom's car. as they drove away. And that was when I realized, well, I don't have a cell phone in my pocket anymore to call them. So I had to walk down, with my new companion that was just given me, and we had to go tell the front desk, well, I forgot my backpack. Obviously, I couldn't call them. I was officially set apart and in the MTC, and there was nothing I could do. But they contacted them and told me that they were going to bring it back. And so I went to my first class, sitting there as a missionary, and everybody had pulled out their scriptures and their Preach My Gospels and their highlighters and all their pens and scripture study guides and things like that, and I sat there like the new kid at school, and I was like, can I borrow a pen, anyone? It was a pretty I would say funny but embarrassing story. And I remember when my backpack got back, they called me in and I picked it up, and later that night got to the room, and I just remember my brother writing me a note and leaving it in the backpack that said, 700 and however many days left. And and on the note, it just said, just make it till Sunday. And I didn't really understand what that meant, but those first few days are when, for most of the missionaries, are the most testing. It's a very exciting experience to be there. You're doing a lot of new things. You're learning a lot. But at the same time, you're realizing what you just got into. You're in classes for 8 hours of the day, and you're trying to learn a language that so many voices and feelings inside of you are telling you that you're inadequate and that you're not going to do it. And how am I supposed to go and preach this gospel in this language? Often so much harder on ourselves than we need to be. And I remember, no names, but there was a lot of missionaries that would cry at night those first couple of days, not trying to scare anyone, but when it sets in and you're laying in your bed in the MTC and you wake up and you realize this is every day for the next 2 years, which is where your testimony and your commitment to the Savior is really, really important. But I remember that note that my brother left me as advice, just make it to Sunday. Because you get in, I believe on Wednesdays is when missionaries get in there. And on Sundays, you have church and you have these awesome devotionals and testimony meetings. And that was probably one of the best advice that I had received, was from my brother with that little note, a tender mercy from God, having forgotten my backpack, feeling more inadequate than I ever could, that first day, and the reminder, that if you make it through that first week, that you will, that you'll be fine. You'll be in the routine, and you'll be ready. One of the awesome things about that is just remembering why you're there. Forgetting about all of the little things. It's easy to be so distracted on all the long, things that you have to learn and you have to do, and how much you don't know, and this language that you'll feel like you'll never learn. It's been a few days. Nobody's expecting you to learn the language in a few days. The Lord is going to bless you, and His promises are so real. And just remember that. Remember why you're there, and remember that testimony that you have, and remember that your mission is your outward demonstration of your inner commitment, just as we learn in the gospel of other things that are important to us, that show our outer commitment, and our testimony will be what will get us through those times.